I am going to talk mostly about investigative journalism use cases because that's sort of been my beat at the Times. And we've been using AI a lot, but primarily as a background element in these investigations. And so I'm going to talk about a few case studies here. This first one is going through various appearances on TV by various cabinet members ahead of their Senate confirmation hearings. So we did something where we went through all the footage of Tulsi Gabbard over the past 10 years via news channels using the Internet Archives repository. And we used AI to kind of search those transcripts for particular themes that she was talking about that we expected she'd get drilled on at her Senate confirmation. So things like, you know, Edward Snowden or Russia or the CIA or Syria and Assad, things like that. And AI was really useful here to do kind of like an inexact match for certain keywords. We also did this for Pete Hegseth. And for instance, we were looking at ways he's talked about alcohol in the past on Fox News. And using large language model prompting over every single transcript block, we were able to find instances where, for instance, one of his co-hosts is talking about a small town in Tennessee named Hendricks. And he says, oh, that gets me thinking of something else. And he doesn't explicitly use the word gin, even though Hendrix is a brand of gin, but the large language model with a very specific prompt is able to kind of intuit that that might be alcohol related. So the workflow we use a lot is kind of assigning a 0 through 10 score on every single like minute that someone's talked about something, and then we sort those scores in the background and manually review every example. So the human is still kind of in charge and able to make the executive judgment of what's important. So needle in a haystack is kind of the main theme there. We also use some facial recognition to pull out like when is Tulsi Gabbard actually speaking in these video clips because the transcripts are so voluminous. So that's another use case. You can advance the slide. This was a recent one that we published on which words are disappearing in the new Trump administration. And this was a great example of using AI in multiple ways as well. We extracted text. So first we kind of had a manual workflow where we were automatically screenshotting government websites. And so we had over 5,000 of these screenshots. We used AI to basically extract the text, like OCR the screenshots and pull out their raw text form. And we compared before and after and basically used another very nuanced large language model prompt to search for changes. And part of the challenge is kind of like, something like equity can be used in various contexts, like financial, but also social justice. And so the large language model here again is able to kind of go beyond keyword search by intuiting a little more and being very accurate at understanding if this change is actually kind of notable or might be ideologically motivated. And it was also useful for finding changes that actually occurred in Spanish and other languages. And so kind of like this idea of AI is very useful for transformation, like going from one form to another, like images to text, or videos to transcripts. And then it's also very useful for needle in a haystack, sifting through large amounts of media, documents, or text and surfacing the changes. Next slide. And so finally, I wanted to highlight one where we actually looked at our own archive, our own like column. The 52 places to go is something the travel team puts out every year. And for their 20th anniversary, they wanted to understand, what are some of the similar themes we've been talking about this whole time? And so we used large language models and we used semantic search to kind of sift through 300,000 words of articles for these concepts and themes. And it was very useful to use semantic search. Again, if you do, use keyword search, something like sustainability is not really being talked about in the early 2000s. That term was not popular. But semantic search is able to kind of understand conceptually what sustainability means. And we found we were actually talking about that a lot in the early 2000s, just using different language. And so the travel team was able to publish a great, retrospective of their coverage and also include a feature on how our team was able to help them. So that's what I wanted to highlight in my slides, basically ways that we have assisted investigative reporting and other types of political reporting as a background element in the process, always with human review at every step along the way.